Alice woke to the sound of faint scratching on the floorboards. The town was silent, eerily so, but the pendant in her hand pulsed with a warning. She knew immediately. The entity had found her again. Its patience was infinite. Its hunger eternal. Thomas arrived at dawn, looking pale but resolute. "It knows you've survived the basement," he said quietly. "It won't let you leave Ashford without testing you one last time. You must confront it fully, at the heart of the town." Alice's stomach nodded. The basement wasn't the heart? Thomas shook his head. "No, that was a fraction of its consciousness. The entity is tied to the entire town. The streets, the buildings, the very soil. Ashford itself is alive. To survive, you must face it where it is strongest." By mid-morning, they were at the old town square, which Alice now realized was more than a gathering place. It was a nexus. Stones were etched with faded runes, the ground subtly undulating, and the cobblestones seemed to hum faintly beneath her feet. Here, the entity's whispers became distinct voices, each a fragment of a soul it had claimed over centuries. "Alice? Alice, come. Belong." The fog rolled in, denser than before, obscuring even the nearby buildings. From within it, dark shapes formed, humanoid but distorted, flickering as if caught between dimensions. Alice felt the pendant grow hot in her hand, pulsing with a strange protective energy. Thomas guided her to the center of the square, where a massive stone well gaped like a mouth. From its depths, the whispers erupted in layered harmonics, a voice that seemed to come from the earth itself. Finally, "You see, you understand. You belong." Alice's heart pounded. She knew she could not flee. The entity would follow her, would find her, would claim her mind and soul if she hesitated. Clutching the pendant, she stepped closer, feeling the hum of power beneath the cobblestones, the pull of centuries of fear and despair. Converging in that one point, Thomas began chanting the protective words from the manuscript. But Alice realized something terrifying. The entity was reacting, shifting, learning. The shadows swirled upward from the well, forming a towering figure, blacker than the night itself, glowing faintly with the souls trapped inside. The faces of past victims flickered across its form, mouths open in silent screams. "You cannot leave." The voice boomed, echoing in every corner of the square. Alice felt herself stagger backward, almost overwhelmed by fear, but she focused on the pendant and the rhythm of her own heartbeat. Slowly, methodically, she began chanting the words Thomas had taught her, supplementing them with her own defiant declarations. "You have no power over me. I am here. I am real. I choose." The entity recoiled, twisting in the fog as if struck. The streets themselves seemed to pulse with her words, as though Ashford resented being challenged. Alice repeated the words louder, louder, until the wind itself carried them through the square. For a terrifying moment, it seemed as if the town itself might collapse in fury. Buildings groaned, windows shattered, fog boiled, and shadows surged toward her like living waves. Alice braced herself. The entity surged from the well, a massive, clawed form intent on devouring her mind. Then something unexpected happened. The pendant emitted a brilliant white light, so intense it illuminated the entire square, purging the fog and shadows in blinding clarity. The entity screamed, a sound unlike any human noise, its form flickering violently. The trapped souls within its body appeared briefly as glowing figures, and for the first time, Alice saw them, faces of the Morgans, families, travelers, all frozen in the entity's grasp for centuries. She realized then the truth. Ashford fed on the cycles of fear and curiosity, but it had no power over someone who fully understood it and refused to yield. Knowledge and courage were stronger than terror. Alice stepped forward boldly, pendant raised high. "I see you. I know what you are. I am not yours." The shadows swirled around her, clawing at the ground and sky, but the pendant's light was unstoppable. Slowly, the towering figure of the entity began to dissolve, writhing violently before collapsing into the well. The water stilled. The whispers faded to a distant murmur. Thomas exhaled heavily, staggering backward. It's weakened," he said. "But it's not gone. Ashford will always exist. It's patient." Alice nodded, exhausted but resolute. "I understand. And I'll remember. I'll survive, and I'll ensure it doesn't claim me again. The town square looked ordinary now. The fog lifted, streets calm, sun glinting on cobblestones. The air felt lighter. But Alice knew that the calm was fragile. The entity was still there, buried in the foundations of Ashford, waiting for the next cycle, the next curious soul dot, as she walked through the town that evening. She noticed subtle things she hadn't before. Shadows that lingered just a second too long. Whispers on the wind when no one else was around. Streets that seemed slightly displaced, as if Ashford itself was breathing. The town had been challenged, weakened, but not destroyed. It was eternal, and she had survived its test. Alice returned to her cottage, pendant glowing softly. She sat by the window, looking out at Ashford, no longer frightened but vigilant. She understood the rules now. Never trust the quiet, never ignore the whispers, and never let curiosity blind her to the town's hunger. She realized one final truth. Ashford's horror lay not only in the shadows or the entity, but in the knowledge that it could strike again. At any time, patiently, over generations. Survival required courage, vigilance, and memory, the understanding that fear could be faced and resisted as night fell. Alice felt the whispers drift through her mind. Faint, teasing, persistent. We are patient. We wait. We remember. She closed her eyes, clutched the pendant tightly, and whispered back, I am here. I see you. I survive. And for the first time, Ashford recoiled, not defeated, but forced to respect the courage of one who refused to belong. Alice had survived. She was free for now. But Ashford, eternal and patient, continued to wait beneath the streets. Behind every window, in every corner, whispering to the next curious mind. She had faced the horror, confronted the entity, and lived. And she would never forget the town that had tried to claim her.